The gun pressed against Daniel Foster's temple. Cold steel. Steady hand. "You should have just fixed the car and walked away," Victor Sterling whispered. "But you had to play hero." 48 hours ago, Daniel was a broke mechanic worried about his son's lunch money. Now he knelt in a secret weapons facility, his hands zip-tied behind his back, watching a billionaire's daughter bleed from a cut on her face. All because he stopped to help a crying girl with a flat tire. All because he couldn't say no when she looked at him and said 3 simple words, "Eat with me." Subscribe to our channel and follow this incredible story to the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from. Let us know how far this story has traveled. The rain hit Daniel Foster's windshield like God was trying to wash away his sins. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, squinting through the downpour. His wipers couldn't keep up. Every swipe revealed another blur of gray highway, another reminder that he was running late. Lucas was waiting. His 10-year-old son had been talking about the father-son baseball practice for 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks of "Dad, don't forget," and "Dad, you promised." And that look kids give their parents when they've been disappointed too many times, but still believe, still hope, still trust. Daniel checked the clock. 5:47 p.m. Practice started at 6:00. He pressed the accelerator. The Mercedes appeared out of nowhere. Hazard lights blinking in the downpour. Driver's door open. A figure standing in the rain, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her own body together. Daniel's foot hovered over the brake. "Keep driving," his practical mind said. "You're already late. Lucas is waiting. You can't afford to lose more time." But his hands had already turned the wheel. His truck was already pulling onto the shoulder. His body was already moving before his brain could stop it. Melissa's voice echoed in his memory. "The measure of a man isn't what he has. It's what he does when others need him." 3 years dead, and she still guided him. Daniel stepped out into the rain. The girl couldn't have been more than 17. Designer clothes soaked through, mascara running down her cheeks like dark rivers. She was crying, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, desperate kind. The kind that came from being truly alone and truly scared. "Hey," Daniel called out, raising his voice over the storm. "You okay?" She spun around, startled. Her eyes were red swollen. "My tire," she managed. "I hit something. My phone died. I don't know how to—" "It's all right." Daniel was already moving toward the Mercedes, assessing the damage. Flat tire, driver's side rear. Simple fix. "I can help." "Really?" Her voice cracked. "You'd do that?" Daniel was already popping his trunk, grabbing his jack. "What's your name, kid?" "Sophie." She wiped her face, smearing mascara across her cheek. Sophie Crane. The name meant nothing to him. Just another scared teenager on a rainy highway. "I'm Daniel. Give me 10 minutes." He worked in the rain without complaint. His clothes soaked through. Water ran down his neck, his back pooled in his boots. But his hands were steady, practiced. 20 years of working on cars had made this second nature. Sophie stood watching, hugging herself. "You're really good at that." "Done it a few times." "My dad used to work on cars with me." Her voice went quiet. "Before." Daniel glanced up. "Before what?" Sophie didn't answer. She was staring at his truck, at the photo taped to the dashboard, visible through the rain-streaked windshield. Daniel and Lucas at the lake, both grinning. Lucas holding up a fish the size of his hand like it was a trophy. "Is that your son?" she asked. "Yeah, Lucas." "He looks happy." Daniel tightened the last bolt. "He is, most of the time." "My dad used to smile like that." Sophie's voice was barely audible now. "Before they took him from me." Daniel stood wiping his hands on his soaked jeans. "Who took him?" Sophie shook her head, the moment of vulnerability closing like a door. "Nobody. I'm sorry. I talk too much when I'm upset." Daniel handed her his phone. Call someone to let them know you're okay. The spare will get you home, but don't go over 50. Get it replaced tomorrow. Sophie made her call, short-clipped clearly to someone she didn't want to talk to. When she handed back the phone, she reached for her purse. Let me pay you, please. No. But you're soaked. You've been out here for... I said no. Daniel opened her car door for her. Just get home safe, Sophie. She slid into the driver's seat, then paused. Looked up at him with those red-rimmed eyes. Why? She asked. Why what? Why did you stop? Everyone else just drove past. At least 6 cars. I counted, but you stopped. Daniel thought about the question, really thought about it. Because you needed help, he finally said. That's all the reason I need. Sophie stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. Like she was seeing something she'd stopped believing existed. Thank you, Daniel, she whispered. I won't forget this. He watched her drive away. Taillights disappearing into the rain. Then he checked the time. 6:23 p.m. Practice was over. Lucas was going to be devastated. Daniel found his son sitting on the gymnasium steps, baseball glove in his lap, face pressed against his knees. The coach, Mr. Patterson, stood nearby with his arms crossed. His expression said everything. Lucas. Daniel jogged up the steps. Hey, buddy, I'm so sorry. You promised. Lucas didn't look up. His voice was muffled against his jeans. You promised you'd be here. I know I did. But there was this girl on the highway, she had a flat tire and her phone was dead, and there's always something. Lucas finally raised his head. His eyes were wet. There's always a reason. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. Because Lucas was right. There was always a reason. Always an emergency at the shop, always a customer who needed one more thing, always something that came between Daniel and the promises he made to his son. I'm sorry, Daniel said again. The words felt hollow, insufficient. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. I'll give you 2 a minute. He walked back into the gymnasium, leaving them alone. Daniel sat down on the step next to Lucas. For a long moment, neither spoke. Mom never missed anything, Lucas finally said. Not one practice, not one game, not ever. Daniel closed his eyes. I know. She was sick and she still came. Remember? She had that thing in her arm for the medicine and she still sat in the bleachers every single time. Lucas, why can't you be like her? The question hung in the air between them, sharp and honest and devastating. Daniel didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, he couldn't be like Melissa. She had been the organized one, the reliable one, the one who made lists and kept schedules and never ever let Lucas down. Daniel was just Daniel, a man who fixed other people's cars while his own life fell apart. I'll do better, he said quietly. I promise. Lucas stood up, slinging his glove over his shoulder. Don't promise, just do it. He walked toward the truck without looking back. Daniel sat on the steps for a long moment, letting the rain run down his face, wondering when exactly he had become the kind of father his son couldn't count on. The phone rang at 6:47 the next morning. Daniel was already awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying last night's conversation with Lucas over and over. The boy had barely spoken during dinner, had gone to bed early, had left his bedroom door closed, a small gesture that felt enormous. The phone rang again. Unknown number. Daniel answered. Hello. Is this the mechanic who helped my daughter yesterday? The voice was female. Cold. Controlled. The kind of voice that expected obedience. Who is this? My driver will pick you up in 30 minutes. We need to talk. Wait, who are you? What? 30 minutes. Mr. Foster, don't be late. The line went dead. Daniel stared at the phone. His hands were shaking, though he couldn't say why. Something about that voice, the absolute certainty in it, the expectation of compliance, made his stomach tight. He padded to Lucas's room, opening the door quietly. The boy was still asleep, hair sticking up on one side, clutching the stuffed bear that had been Melissa's last gift to him. Even in sleep, he looked troubled. "I'm sorry, buddy," Daniel whispered. "I'll make this up to you." He closed the door and called Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watched Lucas when emergencies arose. She agreed to come over within 20 minutes, her voice thick with concern. "Everything okay, Daniel? You sound worried." "I don't know yet," he admitted. "I really don't know." The Bentley arrived at exactly 7:17 a.m. Daniel had never seen a car that expensive outside of movies. It gleamed black and impossibly clean, as out of place in his modest neighborhood as a spaceship. The driver was a large man in a dark suit. He didn't speak, just opened the rear door and gestured. Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him this was wrong. Strange women didn't summon mechanics to mysterious meetings. Luxury cars didn't appear in struggling neighborhoods without reason. But the woman had mentioned her daughter, the girl from the rain, Sophie. Daniel got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and money. The seats were softer than his bed at home. Through tinted windows, he watched his apartment building disappear as the Bentley pulled away. They drove for 45 minutes, climbing into the hills above the city. The houses grew larger, the gates taller, the distance between neighbors wider. Eventually, they turned onto a private drive that wound through perfectly manicured grounds. The estate that appeared at the end made Daniel's breath catch. It was less a house than a fortress. Glass and steel and sharp angles perched on the edge of a cliff, like a predator watching its territory. Worth more than Daniel could earn in 100 lifetimes. 1,000. The driver led him inside without speaking. The interior matched the exterior, cold, beautiful, intimidating. Modern art on the walls. Furniture that looked designed rather than lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city below. "Wait here," the driver said and disappeared. Daniel stood in the center of what appeared to be a living room, feeling like an intruder in a museum. His work boots felt clunky on the polished floors. His faded flannel shirt felt shabby against the sleek surfaces. He noticed a wall of framed photos and articles. A dark-haired woman on magazine covers, Forbes, Time, Bloomberg. Awards, accolades, headlines. Helena Crane, the woman who revolutionized defense technology. Crane Dynamics, from startup to $30 billion valuation. America's most powerful female CEO. Daniel's stomach dropped. Crane. Sophie Crane. The crying girl in the rain was the daughter of one of the wealthiest women in America. "Mr. Foster." He turned. Helena Crane stood in the doorway. She was smaller than the magazine covers suggested, maybe 5'5", but her presence filled the room. Dark hair pulled back severely, a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's truck. Eyes that assessed him like a problem to be solved. "Thank you for coming." She didn't offer her hand. "Coffee?" "Sure." She poured from an elegant carafe on a side table, her movements precise and economical. No wasted motion. A woman who valued efficiency. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Daniel sat on the edge of an uncomfortable designer chair, accepting the cup she handed him. The coffee was rich and complex, nothing like the burnt dregs from his shop's ancient pot. Helena didn't sit. She stood at the window back to him, looking out at the view. "You helped my daughter yesterday." "I changed her tire. It wasn't a big deal." "It was to her." Helena turned. Her gaze was analytical, measuring. "Sophie doesn't trust people easily. Hasn't for 4 years. Yet she came home last night and talked about you for an hour." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I just helped with a flat tire." "You did more than that." Helena moved to sit across from him, crossing her legs with deliberate grace. "You stopped when others didn't. You worked in the rain without complaint. You refused payment. You showed her kindness without expecting anything in return. That's just basic human decency. Something flickered across Helena's face, surprise maybe, or confusion. Is it? In my experience, people rarely act without calculation of benefit. Daniel set down his coffee cup, suddenly uncomfortable. Look, Mrs. Crane, Ms. Crane, I don't know why you brought me here. But if it's about money, I already told Sophie I don't want payment. This isn't about money. Helena leaned forward slightly. This is about who you are, Mr. Foster. Or more specifically, about whether I can trust you. Trust me with what? Helena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up a tablet from the side table, glancing at it briefly. Daniel Marcus Foster, age 43, former aerospace engineer at Hartwell Defense Systems, left 5 years ago following company restructuring. Opened Foster Auto Repair shortly after. Son Lucas, age 10, 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary, exceptional academic performance. Late wife Melissa deceased 3 years from ovarian cancer. Outstanding medical debt of approximately $140,000. Current credit score 618. Monthly income approximately 40% below your previous engineering salary. Daniel's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. How do you? I know everything about anyone who comes into contact with my family, Mr. Foster. Helena set down the tablet. Standard precaution. Sophie is vulnerable. Has been since her father's accident. Her father? Helena's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. My ex-husband Marcus. 4 years ago there was an incident, an attempted kidnapping targeting Sophie. Marcus intervened. He was shot twice. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. Jesus. He survived, but the brain damage was extensive. Helena's voice remained controlled, but something dark moved behind her eyes. He doesn't recognize Sophie anymore. Doesn't remember their relationship. Doesn't remember teaching her to work on cars in their garage every Sunday. That's what Sophie had meant, before they took him from me. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I'm sorry. So you understand why I'm cautious. Why I investigate anyone Sophie shows interest in. Helena's gaze sharpened. And why I'm curious about you specifically. Me, I'm just a mechanic. No. You're a former aerospace engineer with expertise in electromagnetic systems and defense applications. You worked on classified projects at Hartwell before the restructuring. You have knowledge that certain people would find valuable. Daniel frowned. That was years ago. I haven't touched that work since your wife got sick and you needed flexible hours to care for her. Since the industry you devoted your career to abandoned you when you needed them most. Since you were forced to rebuild from nothing while raising a child alone. Every word was a scalpel, precise and cutting. You've done your homework, Daniel said quietly. I always do. Helena stood, moving back to the window. Here's what I want from you, Mr. Foster. Sophie has become interested in automotive maintenance. She claims she wants to learn from you specifically. Why me? I don't know. Perhaps because you remind her of her father. Perhaps because you showed her kindness without agenda. Whatever the reason, she's asking to visit your shop, to learn from you. Daniel's guard went up. And you want me to, what, babysit her, report back on her activities? Helena turned. I want you to teach her what she asks to learn. I want you to be the mentor she's searching for. A pause. And yes, I want you to keep her safe, because there are people who would hurt my daughter to get to me, people who might already be watching. What kind of people? Helena didn't answer directly. Instead, she slid a document across the coffee table. A contract. An exclusive service agreement, she said. Crane Dynamics will hire you to maintain our corporate vehicle fleet. The retainer alone would be triple your current annual income. Enough to eliminate your debt, rebuild your son's college fund, hire additional help at your shop. Daniel stared at the numbers. His mind went blank. Then, the calculations started automatic and unstoppable. This money would change everything. Lucas could have new clothes instead of second-hand. They could fix the apartment's leaky roof. He could stop choosing between paying the electricity bill and buying groceries. Why? The question came out hoarse. Why would you offer me this? Because I need someone Sophie trusts. Someone outside my company's sphere of influence. Someone who has nothing to gain by lying to me. You could hire anyone. Security experts, professionals. Sophie has rejected every professional I've sent her way. She doesn't trust them. Helena's voice softened almost imperceptibly. She trusts you. After 15 minutes in the rain, she trusts you more than she's trusted anyone in 4 years. Daniel looked at the contract, then at Helena, then at the view through the windows, a world of wealth and power so far removed from his own that it might as well be a different planet. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked. Helena's expression flickered. "What makes you think I'm hiding something? Because nobody offers this much money for basic auto maintenance and babysitting. Because you're scared I can see it, even though you're trying to hide it. And because your daughter told me someone took her father from her." For a long moment, Helena said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its sharp edge. "My company has enemies, Mr. Foster. Powerful ones. 4 years ago, one of them tried to hurt Sophie to get to me. They nearly killed Marcus instead." She met his eyes directly. "I believe they may be trying again. And this time, they might succeed. Have you gone to the police, the FBI? With what evidence, suspicions, fears my ex-husband can't remember what he discovered, and everyone else who might have known is..." She trailed off. "Is what? Gone." The word hung in the air between them. Reassigned, retired, disappeared. Anyone who got close to the truth has been removed one way or another. Daniel's skin prickled with warning. "What truth?" Helena picked up the contract, holding it out to him. "Take this. Review it with a lawyer if you wish. If you decide to accept, you'll learn more. If you decide to walk away..." She shrugged. "Then you go back to your life, and we never speak again." Daniel took the contract. It felt heavy in his hands. "And if I accept, then you become part of something larger than yourself, Mr. Foster. Something dangerous." Helena's eyes held his. "But also something that might actually matter. Something that might protect my daughter and yours." "Lucas. What does my son have to do with..." "Nothing. Yet. I'm simply pointing out that we both have children we would do anything to protect." Helena moved toward the door, signaling the end of their meeting. "Think carefully. Call the number on the card attached to the contract when you've made your decision." The driver appeared as if summoned by telepathy. "Wait!" Daniel called out as Helena was about to leave. "You said someone took your ex-husband from Sophie. Do you know who..." Helena paused in the doorway. When she turned back, her face was a mask of controlled fury. "Someone inside my own company, Mr. Foster. Someone I trusted. Someone who's still there, still watching, still waiting." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And they're getting closer to Sophie every day." The drive home felt longer than the drive there. Daniel sat in the Bentley's plush seats, staring at the contract in his hands, without really seeing it. His mind was racing. Helena Crane was offering him a lifeline. Enough money to solve every financial problem he had. Enough to give Lucas the life Melissa had wanted for him. But she was also offering something else. Danger. Secrets. A conspiracy that had already claimed one victim and might be hunting another. Sophie's face flashed in his memory. Standing in the rain, crying alone. My dad used to smile like that. Before they took him from me. His phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "Dad, did you sign the contract Mrs. Chen told me about the fancy car? Are we going to be rich?" Daniel smiled despite himself. "Not rich, buddy, but things might get better. See you soon." He hit send, then looked back at the contract. Helena's card was clipped to the front. He should say no. Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. He wasn't a bodyguard or an investigator or whatever Helena actually needed. He was a mechanic, a struggling single father, a man who couldn't even make it to his son's baseball practice on time. But Sophie's voice echoed in his ears. "Why did you stop? Because you needed help." "That's all the reason I need." Maybe that was still true. Maybe it had always been true. Maybe Melissa had been right all along about what made a person worth something. The Bentley pulled up in front of his apartment building. Daniel stepped out, still holding the contract. "Sir." The driver spoke for the first time. "Ms. Crane wanted me to tell you one more thing." Daniel turned. "She said to ask yourself what you would want someone to do if Lucas was in danger. If he needed protection that you couldn't provide." The driver got back in the car and drove away, leaving Daniel standing on the sidewalk with a choice that didn't really feel like a choice at all. He waited until Lucas was asleep that night before making the call. The boy had been quiet all evening, still hurt from the missed practice, still distant in that way children get when they're afraid to trust. Daniel had made his favorite dinner mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs, but Lucas had only picked at it. "Things are going to change," Daniel had promised him at bedtime. "I'm going to do better, be more present." Lucas had looked at him with Melissa's eyes. "You always say that, Dad." "I know, but this time I mean it." "You always say that too." Daniel had kissed his son's forehead and turned out the light, feeling the weight of every broken promise he'd ever made. Now he sat at the kitchen table, Helena's card in front of him, phone in hand. He dialed. She answered on the first ring. "You've made a decision." "I have. I'll take the contract, but I have conditions." A pause. "I'm listening." "Sophie can come to my shop. I'll teach her whatever she wants to learn, but I won't spy on her. I won't report her conversations back to you. If she tells me something in confidence, it stays between us." "That's unexpected." "If you want me to earn her trust, I have to actually be trustworthy. That's not negotiable." Another pause, longer this time. "What else? If this gets dangerous, really dangerous, I'm out. I have a son. He comes first, always." "Understood. And I want to know everything. Whatever you're hiding, whatever you're afraid of, I need to know. I can't protect Sophie if I'm operating blind." Helena was quiet for so long that Daniel thought she might have hung up. "Come to my office tomorrow," she finally said. "Noon. I'll tell you what I know. All of it. All of it." A pause. "And Mr. Foster, thank you. For doing the right thing when you could have walked away." The line went dead. Daniel sat in the dark kitchen, listening to Lucas's soft breathing from down the hall, wondering what exactly he'd just agreed to. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. "Stay away from the Crane girl. This is your only warning." Daniel stared at the message, his blood turning to ice. It had already begun. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table until 3 a.m., staring at that text message, reading it over and over until the words burned into his brain. "Stay away from the Crane girl. This is your only warning." Someone knew. Someone was watching. Someone had his phone number. The rational move was to call Helena, tell her about the threat, walk away from the whole thing. Let the billionaires and their enemies fight their own battles. He had a son to protect, a business to run, a life that was already complicated enough without adding conspiracy theories and death threats. But Daniel didn't call Helena. Didn't call anyone. Instead, he deleted the message stupid, he knew potential evidence destroyed, and went to check on Lucas. His son was sprawled across the bed, one arm hanging off the edge, mouth slightly open. The stuffed bear was clutched against his chest. In sleep, Lucas looked younger than 10. Vulnerable. Innocent. Melissa's voice echoed in Daniel's memory. The measure of a man isn't what he has. I know, Daniel whispered to no one. I know. He went back to the kitchen and made coffee. Strong black bitter. The kind of coffee that kept you awake when your brain wouldn't let you rest anyway. By the time dawn broke, he had made his decision. He wasn't walking away. Mrs. Chen arrived at 11:30, clucking with concern over the dark circles under Daniel's eyes. You look terrible, she said, setting her knitting bag on the counter. When's the last time you slept properly? I'm fine, Mrs. Chen. Men always say they're fine when they're falling apart. She peered at him with sharp eyes that missed nothing. This has something to do with that fancy car yesterday, doesn't it? Daniel grabbed his keys. I'll be back by 3. Lucas has a snack in the fridge for after school. Daniel. Her voice stopped him at the door. Whatever you're getting into, be careful. That boy needs his father. I know, Daniel said. That's exactly why I'm doing this. The Crane Dynamics headquarters occupied 40 floors of a downtown skyscraper. Daniel had driven past it hundreds of times without ever really seeing it, just another glass tower in a city full of them. Now he stood in the lobby, feeling like an intruder in a world that didn't belong to him. Mr. Foster, a young woman in a crisp blazer approached. Ms. Crane is expecting you. Follow me, please. They rode the elevator in silence, climbing floor after floor. When the doors opened on the 40th floor, Daniel stepped into a space that made Helena's home look modest. Glass walls, panoramic views, furniture that probably cost more than his annual income. Helena was waiting in a corner office. She stood when he entered, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. Thank you for coming. She closed the door herself, dismissing her assistant with a look. Coffee. I've had enough coffee to keep me awake for a week. Helena studied his face. You didn't sleep. It wasn't a question. Someone sent me a message last night. Daniel pulled out his phone, then remembered he'd deleted it. Told me to stay away from Sophie. Called it my only warning. Helena's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes went cold. What exactly did it say? Stay away from the Crane girl. This is your only warning. That's it. Unknown number. Did you trace it? I'm a mechanic, not a tech expert. I wouldn't know how. Helena was already pressing buttons on her desk phone. James, I need you in my office. Now. She hung up and looked at Daniel. James Wong, head of our cybersecurity division, former NSA. If that message can be traced, he'll find it. Wait. Daniel held up a hand. I deleted the message. I know it was stupid, but nothing is ever truly deleted, Mr. Foster. Not in the digital age. The door opened and a wiry Asian man entered, tablet already in hand. He looked like he hadn't slept in days either. Kindred spirits, Daniel thought grimly. James, this is Daniel Foster, the man I mentioned. James gave Daniel a quick once-over, then turned to Helena. The mechanic. The aerospace engineer who happens to work as a mechanic. Helena gestured to Daniel's phone. He received a threatening text last night. I need you to trace it. James took the phone without asking permission. His fingers flew across the screen, then the tablet, then back to the phone. You deleted it. I know. Doesn't matter. More typing. Give me 30 minutes. He left without another word. Helena turned back to Daniel. Now, you wanted to know everything. I need to know what I'm walking into. Helena moved to the window, her back to him. For a long moment she didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice was different. Quieter. Older. Crane Dynamics was my husband's dream originally. Marcus founded it 23 years ago, straight out of MIT. Brilliant engineer, terrible businessman. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I came on as CFO when we got our first major defense contract. Within 5 years I was running everything. Marcus didn't mind he was happy in the lab designing systems, solving problems. That was where his genius lived. What happened to the marriage? Success happened. 70-hour work weeks, missed dinners, missed anniversaries. Helena turned to face him. We divorced 8 years ago. Amicable mostly. We shared custody of Sophie, remained friendly for her sake. And then 4 years ago, Marcus came to me with something he'd discovered. Helena's hands tightened at her sides. Discrepancies in our financial records. Money moving through shell companies. Research and development happening off the books. Daniel leaned forward. What kind of research? That's what Marcus was trying to determine. He found references to something called Project Eclipse. A development initiative that didn't exist in any official company records yet was consuming millions in funding. Did he find out what it was? Helena shook her head slowly. He got close. Too close. The night before the shooting, he called me. Said he'd discovered who was behind Eclipse and why. Said he had proof. What kind of proof? I don't know. He insisted we meet in person. Said the phones weren't safe. The emails weren't safe. Nothing was safe. Helena's voice caught slightly. We arranged to meet the next morning. He never made it. The pieces were beginning to form a picture in Daniel's mind. Not a complete one, but enough to see the shape of something dark. The kidnapping attempt on Sophie, he said slowly. It was a setup. That's what I believe now. At the time I thought it was random, a wealthy target criminal opportunity. The police agreed. Case closed. Bitterness crept into her voice. But Marcus was shot 4 times, Mr. Foster. The supposed kidnappers never fired at Sophie, never touched her. They shot Marcus and vanished before the police arrived. No arrests, no leads, nothing. You think someone wanted Marcus dead. I think someone wanted to silence him before he could expose whatever he'd found. Helena moved back to her desk, pulling out a thick folder. And I think that someone is still here, still watching, still waiting. She slid the folder across to him. Daniel opened it. Inside were financial records, organizational charts, photographs. A web of connections he couldn't immediately decipher. I've spent 4 years quietly investigating, Helena said. Carefully, slowly. I couldn't risk alerting whoever was responsible. But 3 months ago something changed. What? Sophie started asking questions, going through her father's old files, accessing restricted areas of our network. Helena's jaw tightened. I thought I'd hidden my investigation from her, but she's too smart, too determined. She's been conducting her own search for answers. And that's why you need someone to watch her. Someone she'll actually talk to. Yes. Because if she gets too close to the truth... Helena met his eyes directly. They'll do to her what they did to her father. The weight of it settled on Daniel's shoulders. Not just a job, not just a contract. A girl's life possibly hanging in the balance. Why me? He asked again. Really? You could hire professional protection, former military, experts. Because Sophie won't let them close enough to protect her. She's rejected every bodyguard, every security detail, every professional I've assigned. Helena's voice softened almost imperceptibly. But she trusts you. After 15 minutes in the rain, she trusts you more than she's trusted anyone since her father's shooting. I'm not a bodyguard. No, you're something better. You're the first person who's shown her kindness without wanting anything in return. In her world, in our world, that's almost unheard of. Daniel looked down at the folder in his hands. Photographs of company executives, financial statements he couldn't interpret, emails with redacted portions. Who do you suspect? He asked. Helena hesitated. The person with the most to gain. The person who was closest to Marcus's investigation. The person who's been systematically moving against me since I started my own inquiry. Who? Victor Sterling, our chief financial officer. The name meant nothing to Daniel, but Helena's tone made it clear this was significant. Sterling was Marcus's protégé, she continued. Handpicked, mentored, trusted implicitly. When Marcus stepped back from daily operations after our divorce, Sterling became his eyes and ears in the company. You think he was a mole? I think he's been building his own empire within mine for years, moving money, burying projects, positioning himself for a takeover. Helena's expression hardened. And I think he tried to kill my ex-husband to protect whatever he's hiding. The door opened without a knock. James Wong strode in, tablet in hand, face grim. Trace the text, he said without preamble. Burner phone. But I managed to triangulate based on cell tower pings. He handed the tablet to Helena. It was sent from inside this building. Daniel's blood went cold. Helena stared at the screen. Which floor? 42, executive level. That's Sterling's floor. James nodded. The CFO's suite. Helena set down the tablet carefully, deliberately. When she looked at Daniel, her eyes were ice. It seems Mr. Sterling has made the first move. What do you mean? He's threatening you to scare you away, which means he knows I've brought you into this. Helena's mind was clearly racing. He's watching me, monitoring my communications. He knew about our meeting yesterday about the contract. Should I be worried? You should be terrified, Mr. Foster. Helena's voice was flat. But you should also know this Sterling has just made a critical error. By threatening you, he's confirmed that he sees you as a threat, which means you're on the right track even before you've begun. That's not exactly comforting. No, but it's useful. Helena stood abruptly. James, I need surveillance on Sterling. Discreet. Nothing he can detect. Already on it. James was heading for the door. I'll have something within 48 hours. After he left, Daniel turned to Helena. What now? Now we see if you're as brave as you seem to be, Mr. Foster. She pulled out her phone. Sophie has requested to visit your shop this afternoon. She wants her first automotive lesson. Already I thought we'd have more time to... We don't have time. Sterling knows you're involved. The clock is ticking. Helena met his eyes. Are you ready? Daniel thought about Lucas, about Melissa, about the promise he'd made to do better, be better. Send her over, he said. I'll be ready. Sophie arrived at Foster Auto Repair at 3:47 p.m. She drove the same Mercedes he'd fixed 2 nights ago, pulling into the small lot with the careful hesitation of someone who'd never parked in a place this modest before. Daniel watched from the shop doorway, wiping his hands on a rag that was already more grease than cloth. She looked different in daylight. Still beautiful in that wealthy teenager way, designer jeans, cashmere sweater hair that probably cost more to maintain than his monthly grocery budget. But there was something harder in her eyes now. Warier. You came, she said, approaching him. I said I would. Most people say things they don't mean. Sophie looked around the shop, taking in the modest equipment, the oil-stained floors, the calendar with its grease-smudged pictures of muscle cars. This is really your place. For 5 years now. It's small. It gets the job done. Sophie nodded slowly, that guarded expression softening slightly. My dad's workshop was small too, before Mom made him move everything to the corporate campus. She walked past him into the shop, running her fingers along a workbench. He always said the best mechanics didn't need fancy equipment, just good hands and better instincts. Smart man. He was. Sophie's voice caught. Is. He is a smart man. Daniel let the silence stretch, giving her space. He'd learned with Lucas that sometimes the best thing you could do was just be present, not pushing, not pulling, just there. Mom told you about him, Sophie said finally. It wasn't a question. Some of it. Did she tell you he doesn't recognize me anymore? Sophie turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. Did she tell you that I visit him every week and he looks at me like I'm a stranger? Did she tell you that the last thing he said to me before they shot him was, "I'll always protect you, princess," and now he can't even remember my name? Sophie. She thinks she knows everything. She thinks she can control everything. The tears were falling now, cutting tracks through her carefully applied makeup. But she couldn't control this. She couldn't protect him, and she can't protect me." Daniel moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his presence. "Is that why you're investigating, looking for answers about what happened to your father?" Sophie's head snapped up. "She told you about that. She's worried about you. She's worried about her company, her reputation, her precious Crane dynamics." Sophie's voice dripped with bitterness. "I'm just another asset to be managed." "I don't think that's true." "How would you know? You've known her for 2 days." "Because I'm a parent." Daniel met her eyes steadily. "And I know what it looks like when someone is terrified of losing their child." Something in Sophie's expression shifted. The anger was still there, but underneath it Daniel glimpsed something else. Doubt, confusion, a desperate wanting to believe that might be true. "She sent you to spy on me," Sophie said. "Didn't she?" "She asked me to keep you safe. That's not the same thing." "It's exactly the same thing." "No." Daniel's voice was firm. "Spying would mean reporting everything you say to her. Keeping you safe means making sure you're still alive to hate me for it later." Sophie stared at him. Then unexpectedly she laughed. It was a small sound, fragile but real. "You're weird," she said. "I've been told. Most people my mom hires are all 'yes, ma'am,' and 'of course, ma'am.' They don't talk back. They definitely don't make jokes. I'm not most people." "No." Sophie studied him with new interest. "You're not." She walked deeper into the shop, examining tools, touching surfaces, clearly more comfortable than she'd first appeared. Daniel watched her, recognizing the gestures of someone who'd spent time in spaces like this before. "Show me something," she said suddenly. "What?" "Teach me something. About cars. Something my dad might have taught me if he'd had more time." Daniel considered this. Then he walked to the old pickup truck he'd been working on before she arrived Mrs. Patterson's ancient Honda in for its millionth oil change. "Come here." Sophie approached, and he popped the hood, revealing the engine beneath. "This is a 2003 Honda Civic," Daniel said. "One of the most reliable engines ever made. Your dad would have appreciated it." "Why?" "Because it's honest. No pretense. No fancy computer systems trying to convince you it's something it's not. Just pistons and cylinders and the basic physics of internal combustion." He pointed to various components as he spoke. "Air filter, radiator, engine block. Everything has a purpose. Nothing is wasted." Sophie leaned in, genuinely interested. "My dad used to say the same thing about good engineering. Form follows function." "He sounds like a man who understood machines." "He understood everything." Sophie's voice went quiet. "That's why they had to stop him, because he understood what they were doing." Daniel set down the rag he'd been holding. "What do you think they were doing, Sophie?" She looked at him sharply. "You're not just asking because my mom told you to. I'm asking because I received a death threat last night warning me to stay away from you." Sophie's face went pale. "What?" "Text message. Unknown number. Stay away from the Crane girl. This is your only warning." Daniel held her gaze. "So yeah, I'm invested now. I'd like to know what I'm risking my life for." Sophie was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Project Eclipse. That's what my dad was investigating." She glanced around the shop as if checking for surveillance. "He found financial discrepancies, money disappearing into shell companies, research happening that wasn't on any official record." "Your mother mentioned this. She said she doesn't know what Eclipse actually is." "She's lying." Sophie's eyes flashed. "Or she's in denial, or she's protecting herself. I don't know which." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "But I found this in my dad's hidden safe, the one nobody knew about except me." Daniel took the paper. It was a technical specification sheet, heavily redacted, but with enough visible text to make his blood run cold. Directed Electromagnetic Pulse Delivery System. Codename, Eclipse. Target, Specificity. Variable, 1M. 500 mm radius. Power output. Classified application. Infrastructure disruption. Electronic Warfare Developer, Redacted, Crane Dynamics, Aerospace Division. This is a weapon, Daniel said slowly. Not just any weapon. A precision EMP device. It can disable electronic systems within a specific area while leaving surrounding infrastructure intact. Sophie's voice was tight. Perfect for military operations. Also perfect for terrorism, or assassination, or 100 other things that Crane Dynamics is absolutely not authorized to develop. Daniel's engineering mind was already processing the implications. A targeted EMP would require extraordinary precision, advanced focusing systems, specialized power generation calibration algorithms that could distinguish between target systems and collateral electronics. The kind of technology that required experts in electromagnetic systems and defense applications. The kind of technology he used to work on at Hartwell. "Your mother didn't authorize this," he said. "That's what she claims. But someone did. Someone with access to Crane Dynamics resources. Someone with the expertise to hide it." Victor Sterling. Sophie practically spat the name. My dad's protege. The man he trusted with everything. Her hands clenched into fists. The man who probably ordered him killed. "Do you have proof of that?" "Not yet, but I'm going to find it." Sophie's jaw set with determination. My dad left more than just this document. Before the shooting, he told me he'd hidden evidence somewhere they would never think to look. Everything he'd discovered about Eclipse, financial trails, technical specifications, communication logs. "Do you know where—" Sophie shook her head, frustration evident. "I've searched everywhere. His apartment, his office, our old vacation house. Nothing." Daniel thought about this. A brilliant engineer hiding evidence that could expose a dangerous conspiracy. Where would he put it? "What about places that weren't obvious?" Daniel asked. "Places that had personal significance but wouldn't appear connected to his work." Sophie frowned. "Like what?" "You said he used to work on cars with you. Did he have a workshop somewhere? A garage that wasn't affiliated with the company?" "Just our house, the garage there." Sophie's eyes widened. "But Mom sold the house after the divorce. I haven't been back since—" Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and the color drained from her face. "What is it?" Sophie showed him the screen. A text message from an unknown number. "I know what you're looking for. I know where it is. Meet me at the old house tonight, 9 p.m. Come alone." Daniel's instincts screamed danger. "Don't go." "I have to. This could be everything my dad—" "It could also be a trap. Sophie, someone just threatened me for getting involved with you. And now you get a mysterious message telling you to go somewhere alone." "Then come with me." "What?" Sophie grabbed his arm, her eyes desperate. "You said you'd keep me safe. This is what that looks like. I have to go. I have to know. But I don't have to go alone." Daniel thought about Lucas, about Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to watch him until 9, about the promise he'd made to be a better father, to be present, to stop letting other priorities come first. Then he thought about Sophie. 17 years old, father effectively dead, mother she didn't trust, investigating a conspiracy that had already claimed one victim. Melissa's voice. "The measure of a man isn't what he has." "Call your mother," Daniel said. "Tell her where we're going." "No, she'll stop me. She'll send her people and they'll take over, and I'll never find—" "Sophie, if this is a trap, someone needs to know where we are." Sophie hesitated, warring with herself. Finally, she nodded. "I'll text her, but I'm not waiting for permission." "Fair enough." Daniel grabbed his jacket and his keys. "Let's go find out what your father was hiding." The old Crane house sat at the end of a quiet suburban street, its for sale sign weathered and faded. In the early evening darkness, it looked abandoned, forgotten. The kind of place where bad things could happen without anyone noticing. Sophie parked on the street, hands gripping the steering wheel. "I haven't been here since I was 12. she said quietly. "Since my parents split up. We used to be happy here, before everything fell apart." Daniel scanned the property. No visible cars, no lights inside. The neighborhood was the kind where people minded their own business. Expensive homes set far apart residents who valued privacy above community. "We go in together," Daniel said. "Stay close. If anything feels wrong, we leave immediately." "Okay." They approached the front door. It was unlocked, which sent Daniel's warning bells ringing even louder. "Someone's been here," he murmured. "Or someone's waiting for us." The interior was empty of furniture, but not empty of memories. Sophie moved through the space like she was walking through a dream, her fingers trailing along walls, her eyes seeing things that weren't there anymore. This was the living room. Dad used to read me stories here in front of the fireplace. She moved toward the back of the house. Kitchen, dining room, and back there. She pointed to a door that led to what Daniel assumed was the garage. The workshop, where we worked on cars together every Sunday. They moved through the dark house, Daniel's senses on high alert. Something felt off. The air was too still, too expectant. The garage door creaked when Sophie pushed it open. Inside, moonlight filtered through dirty windows, illuminating an empty space. No car, no equipment, just concrete floors and bare walls. "There's nothing here," Sophie said, devastation creeping into her voice. "They cleaned everything out." "Wait." Daniel moved to the back wall, running his hands along the surface. His engineering eye had caught something, a slight irregularity in the concrete, a seam that shouldn't be there. "Sophie, come look at this." She joined him, her hands finding the same anomaly. "It's a panel, hidden." They found the release mechanism together, a small depression in the concrete that clicked when pressed. The panel swung open, revealing a small safe built into the wall. "I didn't know this was here," Sophie breathed. "Dad never—" "He was protecting you, keeping you safe from knowledge that could get you killed." Sophie's hands trembled as she examined the safe. It had a keypad, 6 digits required. "I don't know the code," she said. Daniel studied the keypad. 6 digits, personal. Something Marcus would remember, but others wouldn't guess. "When's your birthday?" "July 15th, 071508. Sophie shook her head. "I already tried it." "What about your parents' anniversary, your mother's birthday?" "Tried everything, all our family dates, nothing works." Daniel thought about this. A hiding place your enemies would never think to look, a code they'd never guess. "What if it's not about you?" he said slowly. "What if it's something only your father would know? Something from before the family?" Sophie stared at him. "I don't know anything about his life before my mom. He never talked about it." "Then we need to find someone who does." A sound from inside the house made them both freeze. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Someone else was here. Daniel grabbed Sophie's arm, pulling her behind the safe's panel, pressing them both into the shadows. Through the gap, they watched as a figure entered the garage. Tall, male, well-dressed even in the darkness. "I know you're here." Victor Sterling's voice echoed in the empty space. "The text was from me, obviously. I wanted to see if you'd be stupid enough to come." Sophie tensed beside Daniel. Her breathing had gone shallow, rapid. "You've been busy, Sophie." Sterling continued moving slowly through the garage. "Asking questions, accessing files you shouldn't be able to access, following in your father's footsteps." He laughed softly. "Didn't learn from his mistake, did you?" Daniel could feel Sophie trembling, fear and rage warring inside her. "I know he found the safe," Sterling said. "I know he hid something there. The question is whether you know the code." He stopped, turning slowly, as if sensing their presence. "Why don't you come out and we'll discuss it civilized-like?" Daniel made a decision. He pressed something into Sophie's hand, his car keys, and leaned close to her ear. "Back door. My truck is parked 2 streets over." Go. I'm not leaving you. Go. Now. He stepped out of the shadows before she could argue. Looking for me, Daniel said. Sterling turned surprise flashing across his face before it smoothed into controlled amusement. The mechanic! How touching! He tilted his head. Where's Sophie? Gone. Called her mother before we came in. Cops are probably on their way. It was a bluff. Daniel had no idea if Sophie had actually contacted Helena. Sterling's smile didn't waver. I don't think so. Sophie would never trust her mother with something this important. He took a step closer. But it doesn't matter. You're here. And you know about the safe. That makes you a liability. You're going to kill me in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. You'd be surprised what people don't notice when they're trying hard not to see. Sterling reached into his jacket. Daniel didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. He moved. Years of working with heavy equipment lifting engines, wrestling with stubborn machinery, it had kept him strong. He closed the distance before Sterling could react, slamming into him, driving him backward into the wall. The gun went off. Wild, missing everything. They grappled in the darkness. Sterling surprisingly strong for a man who spent his days in boardrooms. Daniel took an elbow to the jaw, tasted blood but didn't let go. He got his hands around Sterling's wrist, slammed it against the concrete until the gun dropped. Sterling brought his knee up. Daniel barely twisted away in time. You're making a mistake, Sterling hissed their faces inches apart. You don't know what you're dealing with. I know enough. Daniel drove his forehead into Sterling's nose, bone crunched, blood sprayed. Sterling screamed, stumbling backward, hands flying to his face. Daniel kicked the gun into the shadows and ran. Out the back door, through the overgrown yard, over the fence. He didn't stop until he reached his truck where Sophie was waiting in the passenger seat, face pale, eyes wide. Drive? She gasped. Just drive. Daniel drove. They didn't speak until they were miles away, the quiet suburb fading in the rearview mirror. He was going to kill you, Sophie finally said. Her voice was shaking. Yeah. You could have died. For me. Daniel glanced at her. This girl who'd lost her father. Who'd been hunting for truth in a world full of lies. Who reminded him in so many ways of the man Lucas was going to become. The measure of a man isn't what he has, he said quietly. It's what he does when others need him. Sophie stared at him. Tears were streaming down her face. My dad used to say something like that. Smart man. Sophie's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then showed Daniel the screen. A text from Helena. Where are you? What happened? Call me immediately. And below it another message. Unknown number. You should have stayed away. Now everyone you love pays the price. Daniel's blood turned to ice. Lucas. He pressed the accelerator to the floor. Daniel's hands shook on the steering wheel as he dialed Mrs. Chen's number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. Pick up, he breathed. Please pick up. 4 rings, 5. Sophie watched him from the passenger seat, her face pale with understanding. Daniel. Come on, come on, come on. The voicemail clicked on. Mrs. Chen's cheerful recorded voice filled the truck cab. Daniel hung up and called again. Same result. Something's wrong. His voice came out strangled. She always answers, always. He pressed the accelerator harder. The truck's engine screamed in protest. They were still 20 minutes from his apartment. 20 minutes that might as well be 20 years. Sophie was already on her phone. I'm calling my mother. She has security teams. She can get someone there faster than us. Daniel didn't argue, couldn't argue. His entire world had narrowed to a single point: Lucas. His son. His reason for everything. Sophie spoke rapidly into the phone. Mom, listen to me. Don't talk, just listen. Sterling is involved. Project Eclipse. He just tried to kill us at the old house. And now someone threatened Daniel's son. We need people at his apartment immediately. She rattled off the address from Daniel's registration documents in the glove compartment. I don't care about protocols, Sophie snapped into the phone. Send everyone, now. She hung up and looked at Daniel. 8 minutes. Her closest team is 8 minutes away. 8 minutes. An eternity. Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. His finger hovered over the button. Don't answer it, Sophie said. It could be Sterling. It could be about Lucas, he answered. Mr. Foster. Victor Sterling's voice was calm, controlled, despite the broken nose Daniel had given him. I believe we have unfinished business. Where is my son? Straight to the point. I respect that. Sterling's breathing was slightly labored. Your son is fine, for now. The old woman, too. Sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the danger they're in. Daniel's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. If you touch him... I don't want to touch him, Mr. Foster. I want to make a trade. You have something I need. Or rather, you're close to something I need. The safe. Very good. The code. I need the code to Marcus's safe. I don't know it. Then find it. You have until midnight. Sterling's voice hardened. After that, I stop being patient. And I start being creative. The line went dead. Daniel dropped the phone like it had burned him. His breath came in ragged gasps. What did he say? Sophie demanded. He wants the code. To your father's safe. I have until midnight. But we don't know the code. I know. They drove in silence for a terrible moment. Daniel's mind raced through possibilities, scenarios, outcomes. None of them good. There has to be a way, Sophie said finally. My dad was brilliant, but he was also sentimental. The code would mean something to him. Something important. You said you tried all the family dates. I tried everything I could think of. Then we need to think of something you couldn't. Daniel's voice steadied as his training kicked in. Years of engineering. Years of problem solving. Years of finding solutions when none seemed to exist. Your father hid evidence of a conspiracy that could bring down powerful people. He knew they might come for him. So he created a backup plan. A safe that only someone who truly knew him could open. Sophie's brow furrowed. But who knew him better than me? We were so close before the divorce, before everything changed. Daniel glanced at her. What about his life before your mother? Before you? Everyone has a past. He never talked about it, said it wasn't important. Maybe that's exactly why it is important. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Helena. Team at your apartment. All clear. Son and neighbor safe. Bringing them to my secure location. Call me. The relief that flooded through Daniel was so intense it was almost painful. He pulled the truck to the side of the road, unable to drive for a moment. They're safe, he managed. Lucas is safe. Sophie exhaled sharply. Thank God. Daniel called Helena immediately. Mr. Foster? Her voice was tight with controlled anger. What the hell happened tonight? Sterling happened. He was waiting for us at the house. He knows about the safe. I'm aware. I've been briefed. A pause. Your son is frightened, but unharmed. The neighbor was sedated but is recovering. They're both en route to a secure location. Where? A property Sterling doesn't know about. Purchased through shell companies after Marcus's shooting. I've been preparing for something like this for years. Daniel closed his eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Sterling has made his move. That means he's desperate, which makes him dangerous. Helena's voice softened almost imperceptibly. Bring Sophie to me. We need to regroup. Plan our next steps. We need to figure out that code. Sterling gave us until midnight. Then we have approximately 4 hours. Helena paused. Come to my office. I have resources that might help. And Mr. Foster, yes. You protected my daughter tonight. Whatever happens next, I won't forget that. Crane Dynamics headquarters looked different at night. The glass tower was less imposing in darkness, its windows reflecting the city lights like 1,000 watching eyes. Security met them at the entrance, men with earpieces and barely concealed weapons. They escorted Daniel and Sophie to the private elevator and up to Helena's office. She was waiting for them along with James Wong and two men Daniel didn't recognize. The office had been transformed into something resembling a war room. Multiple screens displayed security feeds, financial data, communication logs. Sophie. Helena crossed to her daughter immediately. For a moment, Daniel thought she might embrace her. Instead, she gripped Sophie's shoulders, examining her face. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Mom." "You could have been killed. Going to that house alone." "I wasn't alone. Daniel was with me." Sophie pulled away. "And we found the safe. Dad's safe. Everything he discovered about Eclipse is in there." Helena's expression shifted. "You found it." "We found it. We just can't open it." Sophie looked at the gathered team. "The code is 6 digits. I've tried everything I could think of. Family dates, anniversaries, birthdays, nothing works." James Wong moved to one of the screens. "I might be able to help. I've been digging into Marcus's background. The man had layers." "What kind of layers?" "The kind most people don't know about." James pulled up a file. Before Crane Dynamics, before Helena, Marcus Reynolds spent 3 years working for a defense contractor called Hartwell Defense Systems. Daniel's blood went cold. "Hartwell. You know it. I worked there 10 years ago." Daniel's mind was racing. "That's where I started my career, in the electromagnetic systems division." Helena and Sophie both stared at him. "You worked for the same company as my ex-husband." Helena's voice was sharp. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "Because I didn't know. I never met anyone named Marcus Crane at Hartwell." "He wasn't Marcus Crane then." James pulled up another document. Before he married Helena, before he changed his name to match hers for business reasons, he was Marcus Reynolds. The name hit Daniel like a physical blow. "Marcus Reynolds," he repeated slowly. "Dr. Marcus Reynolds. You knew him." Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. "I never met him personally, but I knew his work." Daniel moved closer to the screen, staring at the photo James had pulled up. A younger version of Sophie's father before the shooting, before the brain damage, before everything. He was a legend at Hartwell, brilliant engineer. His work on directed energy systems was revolutionary. "Directed energy systems," Helena said slowly. "Like an EMP weapon." "The theoretical foundation." "Yes. Reynolds's research proved that precision electromagnetic pulses could be targeted with enough accuracy to disable specific systems while leaving others intact." Daniel's engineering mind was piecing together connections. "I based my graduate thesis on his early papers. I never knew he was the same person who founded Crane Dynamics." "He changed more than his name when he left that world," Helena said quietly. "He wanted to build something positive, communication systems, transportation technology. He said he was done with weapons. But someone at his company wasn't." Daniel turned to face her. "Project Eclipse isn't just illegal weapons development. It's the completion of your ex-husband's original research. Someone took his early work and finished what he started decades ago." "Sterling," Sophie said. "It has to be Sterling." "Sterling doesn't have the technical expertise." Daniel shook his head. "He's a financial man, not an engineer. Someone else is actually building the weapon. Sterling is just handling the money and the cover-up." "Then who—" James pulled up another file. "I've been tracking personnel movements in the aerospace division. There's one name that keeps appearing in connection with classified projects, Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of Advanced Systems Research." "I know her," Helena said grimly. "She was Marcus's protege at Hartwell. He brought her to Crane Dynamics when he founded the company." "She's been with you from the beginning." "From before the beginning. They worked together for years." Helena's face had gone pale. "Marcus trusted her completely. Then she would know his work better than anyone. Daniel felt the pieces clicking into place. She'd know how to complete Project Eclipse, and she'd know where Marcus's research gaps were. Sophie grabbed Daniel's arm. The code. If Dr. Vasquez worked with my dad at Hartwell, maybe the code is connected to something from that time, something before our family. Their project designations, Daniel said suddenly. At Hartwell, every research project had a 6-digit code. Marcus would have been assigned to specific projects during his time there. James was already typing. I can try to access Hartwell's archived records, but their security is, I still have contacts there. Daniel pulled out his phone. Old colleagues who might be able to help. It's almost 11 at night. Engineers don't sleep. Daniel scrolled through his contacts. And neither do the ones who matter. He found the name he was looking for and dialed. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Daniel Foster. It's been, 5 years? 6. Hi, Karen. Calling at 11 p.m. This must be good. I need a favor. A big one. Karen Chen was silent for a moment. I'm listening. I need project codes from the Reynolds era at Hartwell. Specifically, anything Marcus Reynolds was assigned to in the Directed Energy Division. Another pause. That's classified information, Daniel. I know. Information that could get me fired, maybe arrested. I know that too. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death. Whose life? Whose death? Daniel looked at Sophie, at her desperate eyes, at the weight of 4 years of grief and searching written across her face. A 17-year-old girl who lost her father to people who are still trying to hurt her, and a 10-year-old boy who almost lost his father tonight because I tried to help her. Karen exhaled slowly. You always did have a hero complex, Danny. Can you help? Give me 20 minutes. And Daniel? You owe me dinner. A nice one. Done. The 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Daniel paced Helena's office while Sophie sat rigid in a chair, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. James continued working his screens, tracking Sterling's movements, monitoring communications. Helena stood at the window, staring out at the city below. If this doesn't work, she said quietly, if we can't get the code, it'll work, Daniel said, more confidence than he felt. Sterling won't stop. He's gone too far. Exposed too much? Helena turned to face him. He'll kill all of us to protect his secret. Then we don't give him the chance. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Karen. Found 3 project codes associated with Reynolds. Sending now. The numbers appeared on his screen. Project Aurora, 041578. Project Sentinel, 091982. Project Nightfall, 031584. Daniel read them aloud. Sophie's head snapped up. Try them, she said. Try all of them. James pulled up a virtual keypad on one of his screens. I've got a remote connection to a system that can simulate the safe's lock mechanism. If one of these codes is correct, it should register. He typed in the first code, 004158. The screen flashed red. Invalid. Second code, 009Y1982. Red again. Invalid. Third code, 031584. Red. Invalid. Sophie's face crumpled. None of them work. Wait. Daniel stared at the numbers, his engineer's mind turning them over. These are project codes, not personal codes. Marcus wouldn't use something that official. Something that obvious. Then what? Daniel thought about what he knew about Marcus Reynolds. Brilliant engineer. Loving father. A man who hid evidence in a safe because he knew his enemies were closing in. A man who gave his daughter a locket for her 13th birthday. The locket, Daniel said suddenly. Sophie, you mentioned a locket. One your father gave you. My USB locket, for storing digital files. Dad gave it to me because... Sophie stopped, her eyes widening. Because he said, I might need to keep important things safe someday. Do you still have it? Sophie's hand went to her neck. I wear it every day. She pulled out a delicate chain, and at the end a small silver pendant. Daniel leaned closer. The locket was beautifully crafted, but there was something unusual about its design. Numbers etched into the edge. Small, almost invisible. There's a code, Sophie breathed. On the locket. I never noticed. James handed her a magnifying glass from his desk. Sophie examined the locket, her hands trembling. 721984. She looked up. 72984. James typed the numbers into his simulation. The screen flashed green. Valid. That's it. Helena said, her voice barely audible. That's the code. 721984. Daniel turned the numbers over in his mind. July 21st, 1984. What happened on that date? Sophie asked. I don't know. But it meant something to your father. Something important enough to use as the key to everything he discovered. James was already searching. July 21st, 1984. Let me see. Marcus Reynolds would have been 23 years old. Still at MIT finishing his doctorate. His thesis defense, Helena said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Marcus told me once, July 21st, 1984, the day he successfully defended his doctoral thesis. The day he became Dr. Marcus Reynolds. The day his career truly began, Daniel added. Before the weapons, before the company, before everything that came after, the beginning. Sophie's eyes were bright with tears. He chose the date that made him who he was, before anyone could corrupt his work, before anyone could hurt him. The room was silent for a moment. Then James spoke. We have the code, but the safe is still at the house, and Sterling's people are probably watching it. Then we need to get there first. Daniel checked his watch. It's 11:23. We have 37 minutes before Sterling's deadline. You're not going back there. Helena's voice was firm. I'll send a team. Sterling said I have until midnight. If he sees your security instead of me, he might escalate. Hurt Lucas anyway out of spite. Daniel? Lucas is in your safe house. Sterling can't get to him there, but if I don't show up, if I don't at least try to meet his demands, he might try something else. Something we can't predict. Helena stared at him. You're willing to walk into a trap. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect my son. Daniel held her gaze. Wouldn't you do the same for Sophie? The question hung between them. Finally, Helena nodded. James, coordinate with our security teams. I want people in position around that house before Daniel arrives. She turned back to Daniel. You won't be going alone. Not really. I'll go with him, Sophie said. Absolutely not. Mom, I'm the only one who knows exactly where the safe is. I'm the only one who can get the evidence quickly. Sophie stood, her jaw set with determination. This is about my father, my family. I'm going. Mother and daughter stared at each other. Something passed between them. Some silent battle of wills that Daniel couldn't fully read. Fine, Helena said finally, but you follow Daniel's lead. The moment things go wrong, you run. Understood? Sophie nodded. Daniel checked his watch again. 11:31, 29 minutes. Let's go. The drive back to the house felt different this time. Daniel was hyper-aware of everything. Every car that passed, every shadow that moved, every sound that seemed out of place. Sophie sat beside him, the locket clutched in her hand like a talisman. What do you think we'll find? She asked quietly. I don't know. But whatever it is, your father thought it was worth dying for. He didn't die. Not completely. No. But he lost everything that made him who he was. His memories, his relationships, His connection to you. Daniel glanced at her. In some ways, that's worse. Sophie didn't respond, but she clutched the locket tighter. They parked a block away from the house. Daniel could see Helena's security team in position. Unmarked vehicles. Men and women who looked like ordinary neighbors out for late-night walks. They're here, Sophie said, spotting the same things he had. Good. That means if Sterling tries anything. Mr. Foster. The voice came from behind them. Daniel spun around. Victor Sterling stood in the shadows, a gun in his hand. Beside him were two men, large, armed, professional. I had a feeling you might try something clever. Sterling's face was a mess of bruises, his nose clearly broken. So I decided to intercept you early. The code, Daniel said immediately. We found it. It's yours. Just let us go. Oh, I know you found it. I've been monitoring your communications. Sterling gestured with the gun. What I find interesting is that you also discovered who's actually building my weapon. Dr. Vasquez. That's inconvenient. Let Sophie go. She's just a kid. She's a liability, just like her father was. Sterling's eyes went cold. Get in the car, both of you. If you kill us, you'll never get the evidence. Helena knows everything. Helena will be dealt with. Sterling smiled. The board has already been convinced of her instability. Tomorrow, they'll vote to remove her as CEO, and I'll step in to guide the company through this difficult transition. You think you can just take over Crane Dynamics? I think I've been planning this for 5 years. Sterling moved closer. Ever since Marcus got too close to the truth. Ever since I had to arrange his accident. Sophie made a sound. Small, wounded. Sterling barely glanced at her. Your father was brilliant, but naive. He thought companies should operate with integrity. He thought weapons research should be regulated, controlled. He laughed softly. He never understood that the only real currency in this world is power, and power flows to those willing to seize it. So you shot him. I arranged for him to be shot. There's a difference. Sterling's smile faded. Now get in the car. We're going to take a drive to the house, retrieve the evidence, and then have a conversation about your future, or lack thereof. Daniel's mind raced. Helena's security was nearby, but any sudden move could get Sophie killed. He needed to buy time, create an opportunity. The code, he said. You need us to open the safe. I need one of you, not both. Sterling aimed the gun at Sophie. So choose carefully what you say next. Wait. Daniel stepped in front of Sophie. I'll cooperate, whatever you want, just don't hurt her. Sterling studied him for a long moment. You know what I find fascinating, Mr. Foster? You have no stake in this. No connection to the Cranes beyond a flat tire in the rain. Yet here you are, willing to die for a girl you've known for days. Some things are worth dying for. How noble, how pathetic. Sterling gestured to his men. Take them to the house. Let's finish this. They were forced into a black SUV. Sterling sat across from them, gun never wavering. His men drove in silence. Sophie reached for Daniel's hand. He took it. Her fingers were cold, trembling. It's going to be okay, he whispered. No talking, one of Sterling's men snapped. The house appeared through the windshield, dark, silent, waiting. They were escorted inside at gunpoint, through the empty rooms, into the garage, to the hidden panel in the wall. Open it, Sterling commanded. Daniel looked at Sophie. She nodded almost imperceptibly. She approached the safe, entered the code, 721984. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside was a hard drive. Documents, photographs. A lifetime of evidence carefully preserved. Sterling's eyes gleamed. Finally. He moved toward the safe, reaching for the contents. That's when the lights went out. Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted outside, voices shouting, Running footsteps. Daniel grabbed Sophie, pulling her down, covering her body with his own. More shots. Closer now. Sterling was screaming orders. Then silence. Flashlights pierced the darkness. Men in tactical gear flooded the garage. FBI. The letters were visible on their vests. "Victor Sterling, you're under arrest." Sterling tried to run. Made it 3 steps before he was tackled. Daniel looked up to find Helena standing in the doorway, flanked by federal agents. "How?" he managed. "I called them the moment you left my office." Helena's voice was steady, but her eyes were on Sophie. "I've been building a case against Sterling for months. I just needed proof that he was willing to commit murder to protect his secret." "You used us as bait." "I used myself as bait. You and Sophie were supposed to stay in the car." Helena's expression softened slightly. "But you protected my daughter. Again." Sophie pushed herself up, staring at her mother. "You knew. You knew the whole time." "I suspected. I couldn't prove it." Helena moved closer. "Sophie, I'm sorry. For everything. For not telling you what I knew. For letting you believe I might be involved. You let me hate you. For 4 years. Yes, because your hatred kept you safe. Kept you from looking too closely at the people I was investigating." Helena's voice cracked. "I would rather you hate me alive than love me dead." Mother and daughter stared at each other across the garage. 4 years of grief and suspicion and rage between them. Then Sophie moved, crossed the distance, fell into her mother's arms. Daniel looked away, giving them their moment. His phone rang. Helena's secure line. "Mr. Foster." It was James Wong. "Your son is asking for you. He says he can't sleep until he knows you're okay." Daniel closed his eyes. "Tell him I'm okay. Tell him I'm coming home. He also wants to know if you caught the bad guys." Despite everything, Daniel smiled. "Yeah," he said. "Tell him we caught the bad guys." The FBI field office buzzed with activity, even at 2 a.m. Daniel sat in a hard plastic chair, a cup of cold coffee untouched in his hands. Across the room, Sophie was giving her statement to 2 federal agents, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion evident in every line of her body. Helena had been taken to a separate interview room. Something about conflict of interest about her being both a witness and a potential victim. The federal agents had been polite but firm. Daniel's phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen at Helena's safe house. "Lucas fell asleep. Finally. He made me promise to tell you he's proud of you." The words blurred as Daniel's eyes filled with unexpected tears. He blinked them away, taking a steadying breath. "Mr. Foster?" A woman in a dark suit approached. FBI credentials hung from her neck. Agent Rebecca Martinez, according to the badge. "We need to ask you some additional questions." Daniel stood. "Is something wrong?" "That's what we're trying to determine." Agent Martinez gestured toward an interview room. "This way, please." The interview room was small, clinical. Daniel had seen enough TV shows to know the drill. 2 chairs, 1 table, a mirror that was probably 2-way. Agent Martinez sat across from him, opening a folder. "Mr. Foster, can you explain your connection to Dr. Elena Vasquez?" The name hit Daniel like cold water. "I don't have a connection to her." "According to employment records, you and Dr. Vasquez both worked at Hartwell Defense Systems from 2012 to 2015. "I worked in the Electromagnetic Systems Division. She was in advanced research. Different buildings, different projects." Daniel leaned forward. "I never met her. Yet you knew her name tonight, when it came up in the investigation." "James Wong found her in the records. He said she was connected to Project Eclipse." Agent Martinez studied him. "Dr. Vasquez disappeared 3 hours ago." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What?" "She was under surveillance at her home. Around midnight, she slipped out through a back entrance. Our agents lost her." "That's not possible. Sterling is in custody." "Without him." "Sterling was the money man, Mr. Foster. The organizer. But Dr. Vasquez was the brains, the one actually building the weapon. Agent Martinez closed her folder. And now she's in the wind, with what we believe is a working prototype of Project Eclipse. The room seemed to tilt. Daniel gripped the edge of the table. A working prototype. You're saying there's a functional EMP weapon out there? That's exactly what I'm saying. And according to intercepted communications, Dr. Vasquez has a buyer lined up. Someone willing to pay $200 million for the technology. Who? We don't know yet. Sterling refuses to talk, but the transaction is supposed to happen within the next 12 hours. Daniel's mind raced. Why are you telling me this? Agent Martinez leaned back. Because you have knowledge that might help us find her. Your engineering background, your familiarity with directed energy systems, your connection to Hartwell. I told you I never met her. But you know her work. You said yourself that you based your graduate thesis on Marcus Reynolds' research. Dr. Vasquez was his closest collaborator. Martinez slid a photograph across the table. Look at this. Daniel picked up the photo. Technical specifications, equations, diagrams. His engineering training recognized it immediately. This is an improvement on Reynolds' original design. The focusing mechanism is completely different. More precise, more... He trailed off. More what? More dangerous. Reynolds' original concept could disable electronics within a general area. This version... Daniel studied the diagrams more closely. This could target individual devices, specific systems. You could shut down a single computer in a room full of electronics, or a single car on a busy highway, or a single pacemaker in a crowded hospital. Daniel set down the photo. His hands were shaking. Yes. Agent Martinez stood. We need your help, Mr. Foster. You understand this technology in a way our people don't. If we have any chance of stopping Dr. Vasquez before she sells that weapon, we need you. I'm a mechanic. I haven't done engineering work in 5 years. You were one of the top minds in your field before you left. Your former colleagues still speak highly of you. Martinez moved toward the door. This isn't a request. It's a national security matter. But I'd rather have your willing cooperation than your reluctant compliance. Daniel thought about Lucas, about the promise he'd made to be a better father, about the danger he'd already put his son in. Then he thought about what a weapon like this could do in the wrong hands. Targeted assassinations, infrastructure attacks, terrorism on a scale previously impossible. What do you need me to do? Martinez opened the door. Come with me. The FBI's mobile command center was set up in a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Screens everywhere. Agents speaking rapidly into headsets. A controlled chaos that reminded Daniel of mission control in old NASA footage. Sophie was there along with Helena. They looked up as Daniel entered. They recruited you too, Sophie asked. Apparently I'm useful. Helena moved to stand beside him. They want Sophie to help profile Vasquez. Psychological insights based on her interactions with Marcus. And you. Financial tracking, following the money trail. Helena's jaw was tight. Vasquez has been siphoning funds for years. I should have caught it earlier. You were focused on Sterling. I was focused on the obvious threat, the political maneuvering, the board manipulation. Helena shook her head. I missed the real danger right under my nose. Agent Martinez approached with a tablet. We've got a lead. Intercepted communication between Vasquez and her buyer. They're meeting at an industrial facility outside the city. Which facility? Martinez showed them the screen. Daniel recognized the location immediately. That's an old Hartwell property, decommissioned 3 years ago. You know it? I spent 2 years working there, before they moved operations to the main campus. Daniel studied the satellite imagery on the tablet. It's a testing facility. Electromagnetic shielding. Isolation chambers. Perfect for testing a directed energy weapon. and perfect for hiding one. Martinez was already moving. "We're mobilizing a tactical team. I want you with us, Mr. Foster. In an advisory capacity only." "What about us?" Sophie stepped forward. "We didn't go through all this to sit on the sidelines. Miss Crane, this is a federal operation. My father almost died trying to expose this. I found his evidence. I cracked his code." Sophie's voice was steel. "I'm coming." Helena put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Sophie, don't." Sophie pulled away. "I'm 17, not 7. I can make my own choices." Mother and daughter faced each other. Daniel watched the silent battle of wills he'd witnessed before. This time, something different passed between them. "Stay close to Daniel," Helena finally said. "And for God's sake, if anyone tells you to run, you run." Sophie nodded. They moved out in a convoy of black SUVs. Daniel rode with Martinez, Sophie, and 2 tactical agents. Helena followed in a separate vehicle with the financial team. The drive took 45 minutes. Dawn was breaking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Daniel barely noticed. His mind was consumed with calculations, possibilities, threats. "Tell me about the facility," Martinez said as they drove. 3 main buildings, central testing complex, power generation station, storage warehouse. Daniel pulled up memories he hadn't accessed in years. The testing complex has electromagnetic shielding built into the walls. You could detonate a nuclear bomb inside, and the outside instruments wouldn't register it. Perfect for testing a prototype without detection. That's what it was designed for. What about security? When I worked there, minimal. The isolation was its own protection. But if Vasquez has been using it... Daniel shook his head. She's had years to fortify it. Could be anything inside. Martinez relayed the information through her headset. Daniel could hear fragments of conversation. Tactical positioning. Sniper teams. Breach protocols. This was real. This was happening. Sophie leaned close to him. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good." She managed a small smile. "Me too." The convoy stopped a mile from the facility. Agents deployed into the pre-dawn darkness, moving with practiced efficiency. Daniel was given a tactical vest and strict instructions to stay behind the front line. "You're here to advise," Martinez reminded him. "Not to engage. Understood." Understood. They approached through the woods surrounding the property. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. Every sound seemed amplified. Every shadow contained threats. The facility came into view. 3 buildings just as Daniel remembered. But there were vehicles in the parking lot now. Guards patrolling the perimeter. Motion sensors mounted on poles. "She's expecting company," Martinez murmured. "The buyer," Daniel suggested. "Probably. We need to move before gunfire erupted from the north side of the facility." "Contact! Contact!" Voices shouted through the tactical channel. "Taking fire from the main building." Martinez grabbed Daniel's arm. "Stay down." More gunfire. Explosions. The sound of breaking glass. "They've got military-grade weapons," someone reported. "At least 12 hostiles, maybe more." "Push through," Martinez commanded. "We can't let her escape." Daniel pressed against a tree, Sophie beside him. Her face was pale, but determined. "Daniel." She grabbed his sleeve. "Look." Through the chaos, Daniel saw it. A van pulling away from the warehouse building, moving fast toward a back road. "That's Vasquez," Daniel realized. "She's running." "Martinez," Sophie called out. "The warehouse. Someone's escaping." But Martinez was occupied. The firefight had intensified. Agents were pinned down. Daniel made a split-second decision. "Stay here," he told Sophie. "What? No. You can't." But he was already moving, running toward the warehouse, toward the van that was picking up speed. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. He was 43 years old and hadn't run like this in decades. The van reached the road, started to accelerate. Daniel spotted a motorcycle parked near the warehouse entrance. Keys in the ignition. Stupid. Careless. But he wasn't going to question his luck. He swung onto the bike, kicked it to life, and tore after the van. The pursuit was insane. Daniel hadn't ridden a motorcycle since his 20s. His hands shook on the handlebars. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80. The van was fast, but the motorcycle was faster. Daniel closed the distance, weaving around obstacles, pushing the bike to its limits. A rear window in the van shattered. Gunfire. Someone was shooting at him. Daniel swerved, nearly losing control. A bullet whizzed past his head. He needed to stop the van. But how? Then he remembered. The van's electronics. If Vasquez had the prototype with her. Daniel pulled alongside the van, ducking as another shot flew past. He could see Vasquez in the driver's seat. Dark hair. Determined face. The face of someone who'd spent 20 years building toward this moment. She saw him too. Recognition flashed in her eyes. "Foster!" she screamed through the broken window. "You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing." Daniel accelerated, pulling ahead of the van. Then, he did something completely insane. He turned the motorcycle sideways. The van swerved to avoid him. Vasquez overcorrected. The vehicle fishtailed, tilted, and rolled. Metal screamed against asphalt. Glass exploded. The van tumbled twice before coming to rest on its side, smoke pouring from the engine. Daniel skidded to a stop, his heart trying to explode out of his chest. He approached the wreckage carefully. Vasquez was crawling out of the shattered windshield, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. In her arms, she clutched a metallic case. The prototype. "Stay back." She pulled a gun from her waistband. "I'll kill you." "And then what?" Daniel held up his hands. "Your buyer isn't coming. Sterling's in custody. The FBI knows everything." "You don't understand." Vasquez's voice cracked. 20 years. 20 years I've worked on this. Marcus abandoned the research, but I never did. This technology could change everything. End wars before they start. Eliminate threats without collateral damage. Or assassinate world leaders. Or cripple power grids. Or murder innocent people one heartbeat at a time. That's not what it's for. That's what they'll use it for. You know that. You've always known that. Vasquez's gun wavered. Her eyes were wild, desperate. "I needed the money, the recognition. Marcus got all the credit, all the glory, while I did the actual work." Her voice turned bitter. "He walked away, built his company, became a billionaire, and I was left with nothing, just theories and dreams and a laboratory full of unfinished projects. So you decided to finish them, sell them to the highest bidder. I deserved something. After everything I gave to this field. People are going to die because of what you built, Elena. Is that what you deserve?" Tears streamed down Vasquez's face, mixing with the blood from her wound. The gun shook in her hand. "You don't understand what it's like. Being overlooked. Being forgotten. Watching others take credit for your work while you fade into obscurity." "Actually, I do understand." Daniel's voice softened. "I was a rising star at Hartwell. Patents, recognition, a career path that could have led anywhere. Then my wife got sick and I had to choose, my career or my family." He paused. "I chose my family. I don't regret it, not for a second." "That's different." "Is it?" "We both had everything we worked for taken away. The difference is what we did with what came after." Vasquez stared at him. The gun lowered slightly. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "So tired of being angry, being bitter, being alone." "Then stop. Put down the gun. Let us help you." For a moment, Daniel thought she might actually do it. Her shoulders sagged. Her grip on the weapon loosened. Then the sound of approaching vehicles shattered the moment. Vasquez's face hardened. "They're not going to let me go. They'll lock me up forever. Everything I've worked for, everything I've built gone. Elena. She raised the gun, not at Daniel. At herself. Daniel moved without thinking, lunged forward, grabbed her wrist just as the gun went off. The bullet went wide. They tumbled to the ground together, struggling for control of the weapon. Vasquez fought with desperate strength, clawing, biting, screaming. Daniel finally wrenched the gun free and threw it away. He pinned her to the ground, holding her there as FBI vehicles surrounded them. "It's over," he panted. "It's over." Vasquez went limp beneath him. She was sobbing now, deep, racking sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I just wanted to matter." "You do matter," Daniel said quietly. "But not like this. Never like this." Agents pulled him away, taking Vasquez into custody. Someone draped a blanket over his shoulders. Someone else pressed a bottle of water into his hands. Daniel didn't register any of it. He just stood there watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, wondering how they'd all managed to survive. "Dad." The voice cut through his daze. Daniel turned. Lucas was running toward him, Mrs. Chen huffing behind him, apologizing to the agents trying to maintain the perimeter. "He wouldn't stay in the car," Helena said, appearing beside Daniel. "None of us could stop him." Daniel dropped to his knees just as Lucas slammed into him. Small arms wrapped around his neck. A tear-streaked face pressed against his shoulder. "You're okay," Lucas sobbed. "You're okay. They said you chased the bad lady and the van crashed and I thought—" "I'm okay, buddy." Daniel held his son tight. "I'm okay. You promised you'd come back. You promised." "And I did. I'm here." Lucas pulled back his face, a mess of tears and snot and overwhelming relief. "Don't ever do that again. Okay? Don't ever go away like that again." Daniel looked at his son, at this small human who was his entire world, who he'd almost left an orphan because he couldn't stop himself from trying to be a hero. "I promise," he said. "Never again." Sophie approached, her own eyes red. She'd been crying too, Daniel realized. "You saved her," Sophie said quietly. "Vasquez, you could have let her pull that trigger, but you saved her. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Even people who build weapons." Daniel thought about the question. Really thought about it. Everyone makes choices they regret. What matters is what happens after. He looked at Sophie. "Your father made that choice. He walked away from weapons research. Tried to build something positive. That counts for something." Sophie nodded slowly. "I know. I'm starting to understand." Helena joined them, placing a hand on Sophie's shoulder. This time, Sophie didn't pull away. "Agent Martinez wants to debrief us," Helena said. "All of us. But she said it can wait until you've had some rest." "I don't think I could sleep if I tried." "Try anyway." Helena's voice was gentle. "You've earned it." The sun had fully risen now, flooding the world with light. The gunfire had stopped. The danger had passed. For the first time in days, Daniel allowed himself to breathe. Lucas tugged at his hand. "Dad, can we go home now?" Home. Their modest apartment above the garage, the leaky roof, the bills stacked on the kitchen table, the photo of Melissa watching over them. "Yeah, buddy." Daniel smiled. "Let's go home." But as they walked toward the waiting vehicles, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't finished, something still lurking beneath the surface. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The weapon was only part of it. The real secret is still buried. And now they know you're looking. Daniel stared at the message. His blood went cold. "Dad?" Lucas was watching him. "What's wrong?" Daniel deleted the message, forced a smile. "Nothing, buddy. Everything's fine." But as they drove away from the facility, he knew the truth. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the warehouse. 3 weeks of FBI debriefings, media interviews, and sleepless nights. 3 weeks of Lucas asking questions Daniel couldn't fully answer, and Sophie texting updates about her mother's company restructuring. Daniel stood in his garage, staring at the wall of tools he'd accumulated over 5 years. The same tools, the same space. But nothing felt the same anymore. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He almost didn't answer. The mysterious text from 3 weeks ago still haunted him. The weapon was only part of it. The real secret is still buried. But he picked up anyway. "Mr. Foster," a male voice, unfamiliar. "We need to meet." "Who is this?" Someone who knew Marcus Reynolds. Someone who knows what he really discovered before they shot him. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "I'm done with this. Sterling is in prison. Vasquez is cooperating with authorities. It's over." "It's not over. It never was." The voice paused. "Project Eclipse was a distraction, Mr. Foster. A lucrative side project. But it wasn't what Marcus died for." "Then what was?" "Meet me at Riverside Memorial Hospital, 3rd floor, room 317, 1 hour." "Why should I trust you?" "Because room 317 is Marcus Reynolds' room. And today, for the first time in 4 years, he's awake." The line went dead. Daniel stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he'd just heard. Marcus Reynolds, awake. After 4 years of living death. He called Helena immediately. "Daniel." Her voice was tense. "Is something wrong?" "Someone just contacted me. Said Marcus is awake." Silence on the other end. Then, "That's not possible. His doctors said the brain damage was permanent. He'll never—" "They said to meet at Riverside Memorial, room 317, 1 hour." "Who told you this?" "I don't know. But Helena—" Daniel took a breath. "What if it's true?" Another long pause. "I'll meet you there." Riverside Memorial was a sprawling complex on the east side of the city. Daniel arrived 45 minutes later, finding Helena and Sophie already in the lobby. Sophie's face was pale. Her hands trembled. "Is it real?" she asked. "Is he really—" "We're about to find out." They took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The corridor was quiet, sterile. A nurse looked up as they approached room 317. "Family only," she said. Helena stepped forward. "I'm his ex-wife. This is his daughter." The nurse checked her clipboard. "Mrs. Crane, yes, you're on the approved list." She glanced at Daniel. "And him." "He's with us," Sophie said firmly. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "He's been in and out of consciousness. The doctors don't understand it. Yesterday, he couldn't recognize anyone. This morning, he asked for Sophie by name." Sophie made a small sound. Helena gripped her daughter's hand. They entered the room together. Marcus Reynolds lay in the hospital bed, thinner than the photographs Daniel had seen, older, more fragile. But his eyes were open, and when he saw Sophie, something in them sparked to life. "Princess?" His voice was rough, unused. "You came." Sophie crossed the room in 3 strides, falling to her knees beside his bed. "Daddy! Oh God! Daddy, you're back!" "I never left." Marcus's hand, weak and trembling, reached up to touch her face. "I was just lost. For a while." Helena stood frozen in the doorway. Daniel watched emotions war across her face. Relief, fear, grief, hope. "Helena." Marcus's eyes found his ex-wife. "I'm sorry. For everything." "You have nothing to apologize for." "I have everything to apologize for. I should have told you what I found. Should have trusted you instead of trying to protect you." His voice cracked. "They almost killed Sophie because of my secrets." "She's safe now. We're all safe." "No." Marcus's expression hardened. "You're not. None of you are." Daniel stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Marcus looked at him, really looked, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. "You're the mechanic. The one who helped Sophie. The one who stopped Vasquez. How do you know that? I've been aware. Sometimes. Fragments of consciousness in a sea of darkness. Marcus struggled to sit up. Sophie helped him adjusting pillows. I heard them talking. The nurses. The doctors. Everyone thinks I was gone, but I was there. Listening. Waiting. Waiting for what? For a chance to finish what I started. Marcus reached under his pillow and pulled out a small device. A USB drive. One of the orderlies owed me a favor. Before my accident, I gave him this. Told him to keep it safe. To give it back to me if I ever woke up. Helena moved closer. What's on it? Everything. The real everything. Marcus handed the drive to Sophie. Eclipse was never the main project. It was cover. A profitable distraction to hide what they were really building. Who's they? A consortium. Government officials. Corporate executives. Military contractors. People at the highest levels of power who decided years ago that the current world order wasn't sustainable. Marcus's voice grew stronger as he spoke, as if the truth itself was reviving him. They needed a reset. A way to reshape global power structures without nuclear war. Daniel's blood ran cold. What kind of reset? Targeted infrastructure collapse. A coordinated attack on electronic systems worldwide. Banks, power grids, communications, military networks. Marcus met his eyes directly. Chaos on a global scale carefully orchestrated to destroy existing institutions and allow new ones to rise in their place. That would kill millions of people. Tens of millions. Maybe hundreds of millions, depending on how long the collapse lasted. Marcus's expression was haunted. I discovered the plan 5 years ago, spent 2 years gathering evidence, and then they found out. Sophie gripped her father's hand. The shooting. It wasn't about protecting Eclipse. Eclipse was my exit strategy, evidence of illegal weapons development that I could use to expose the consortium. But they realized what I was doing before I could go public. Marcus's voice broke. They didn't just want to kill me. They wanted to destroy my credibility first. Make me look like a corporate thief so no one would believe anything I said. Sterling. Helena's voice was ice. He was part of it. Sterling was a foot soldier, ambitious, greedy, willing to do dirty work for the promise of power. Marcus shook his head. But the real architects are still out there, still planning, still moving toward their goal. We have to stop them. Sophie's voice was fierce. We have the evidence now. We can... You can't trust anyone. Marcus cut her off. The consortium has people everywhere. FBI, CIA, Pentagon, Congress. Anyone you go to could be compromised. Then what do we do? Marcus looked at Daniel. You, the mechanic. You're the only one they haven't gotten to yet. The only one outside their network. I'm nobody. You're exactly what we need. Marcus struggled to sit up further. You understand the technology. You have no political connections, no corporate ties, no reason for them to suspect you. Suspect me of what? Of bringing them down. Marcus grabbed Daniel's wrist with surprising strength. The evidence on that drive will destroy them, but it has to reach the right people. People I've identified over the years. Journalists, investigators, international agencies outside their control. I'm a mechanic, Daniel repeated. I fix cars. I have a son to take care of. I can't. You already have. Marcus's eyes held his. You stopped a woman from selling a weapon that could have killed thousands. You risked your life for my daughter, for people you barely knew. His grip tightened. You're already involved, Mr. Foster. The only question is whether you'll see it through. Daniel looked at Sophie, at Helena, at this broken man in a hospital bed who'd sacrificed everything to expose a conspiracy that could reshape the world. He thought about Lucas, about the promise he'd made to be a better father, about the life he'd tried to build from the ruins of his old one. Then he thought about what kind of world Lucas would inherit if people like him chose to look away. "I need to make a phone call," he said. Daniel stepped into the hallway and called the one person he trusted completely. "Mrs. Chen, I need you to do something for me." "Daniel." "What's wrong? You sound strange." "I need you to take Lucas somewhere safe. My sister's place in Montana. Tonight." "Tonight, but his school?" "This is important. Life or death, important." Daniel's voice cracked. "Please, just do this for me. I'll explain everything later." A long pause. "All right, I'll pack his things. But Daniel, you be careful. That boy needs his father." "I know. That's why I'm doing this." He hung up and made another call. James Wong answered on the second ring. "Daniel, I thought you were done with all this cloak and dagger stuff." "So did I, but something's come up." Daniel glanced back toward Marcus's room. "I need your help. The kind of help that could get us both killed." "What else is new?" James's voice held dark humor. "What do you need?" "A secure way to distribute information globally. Multiple channels. Different countries. Impossible to stop once it starts." James was quiet for a moment. "You're talking about a dead man's switch. Information release that triggers automatically unless stopped." "Can you build one?" "I can build anything." A pause. "How dangerous is what you're distributing?" "Dangerous enough that powerful people have killed to keep it secret." "Good dangerous or bad dangerous?" "The kind of dangerous that could save millions of lives or paint targets on our backs." James sighed. "When do you need it?" "Yesterday." "Of course. Meet me at the usual place in 2 hours. And Daniel. Whatever this is, I hope you know what you're doing." "So do I." He returned to Marcus's room to find an argument in progress. "Absolutely not," Helena was saying. "We go to the authorities, the FBI, someone." "The FBI is compromised." Sophie's voice was fierce. "Dad just told you that." "Then the media. We hold a press conference, release everything publicly. And give them time to discredit us, to manufacture evidence that we're lying." Sophie shook her head. "They've had years to prepare for this. They'll destroy us before anyone believes the truth." "Then what do you suggest?" "We do what Dad planned. Multiple releases. Different channels. Different countries. All at once, so they can't suppress it." Marcus watched the exchange from his bed, exhaustion evident, but pride visible too. "She's right, Helena. It's the only way." Helena turned to Daniel. "And you? What do you think we should do?" Daniel considered his answer carefully. "I think Marcus is right about the risk, and I think Sophie is right about the method. But I also think we're missing something." "What?" "Proof that we're telling the truth." Daniel moved to the bed, picking up the USB drive Sophie had set on the nightstand. "This contains evidence of the conspiracy, but evidence can be dismissed as fabricated, especially evidence from people the consortium has already tried to discredit. So, what do you suggest?" "We need a confession, someone on the inside who's willing to talk." Helena's expression shifted. "Vasquez." "She's cooperating with the FBI. But you said yourself the FBI might be compromised." Daniel met Helena's gaze. "We need to get to her first. Get her testimony recorded. Add it to the evidence package before we release everything." "She's in federal custody. We can't just—" "I know someone who can help." Daniel's mind was racing. "Agent Martinez. She was different. Not part of the consortium. I could feel it." "You're gambling a lot on a feeling." "Sometimes feelings are all we have." The next 6 hours were the most intense of Daniel's life. He met with James, who worked his technical magic to create a distribution system spanning 12 countries. Encrypted servers, automated releases, fail-safes upon fail-safes. "Once you activate this," James warned, "there's no taking it back. The information goes everywhere, simultaneously." "That's the point." "Just making sure you understand. This will change things, permanently." Some things need to change. Meanwhile, Helena arranged a meeting with Agent Martinez through back channels. The agent was skeptical, but willing to listen. "You're asking me to believe that a global conspiracy involving senior government officials is planning to collapse world infrastructure," Martinez said flatly. "That's insane." "Is it?" Daniel handed her a tablet containing a fraction of Marcus's evidence. "Look at this. Financial transfers, communication intercepts, meeting schedules. It's all documented." Martinez scrolled through the files. Her expression changed, hardened. "If this is real, it's real, and we need your help to make sure it reaches people who can act on it." "What kind of help?" "Access to Vasquez. 30 minutes. Recorded." Martinez stared at him. "You want me to risk my career, my life on your word? I want you to do what you became an FBI agent to do. Protect people, stop threats, serve justice." Daniel held her gaze. "Everything I've told you can be verified. Everything on that tablet is real. The only question is whether you're brave enough to act on it." The silence stretched between them. Then Martinez nodded slowly. 30 minutes. Tomorrow morning. I'll get you in." The federal detention facility was cold sterile. Daniel sat across from Dr. Elena Vasquez in an interrogation room, a small recording device between them. She looked different than she had at the warehouse. Smaller. Defeated. The fire that had driven her to build weapons and chase recognition had burned out. "Why are you here?" Her voice was flat. "To give you a chance at redemption." "Redemption?" A bitter laugh. "I'm facing 30 years in prison. Maybe life. There is no redemption." "There might be, if you're willing to tell the truth." "I've told the truth. To the FBI. To the prosecutors. Everything about Eclipse." "Not about Eclipse." Daniel leaned forward. "About what Eclipse was hiding. About the real project. About the consortium." Vasquez's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Marcus figured it out 5 years ago. That's why they shot him, and you've known all along." "I was just building weapons, following orders. I didn't—" "Stop." Daniel's voice was sharp. "I saved your life at that warehouse. You owe me the truth." Vasquez's hands trembled on the table. "You don't understand. These people, they're everywhere. If I talk, they'll kill me. They'll kill everyone I've ever known. They're already planning to kill millions. A controlled collapse. Global chaos." Daniel slid a photograph across the table. "This is my son, Lucas, 10 years old. If the consortium succeeds, he grows up in a world of war and famine and death. Is that what you want?" Vasquez stared at the photograph. Her shoulders began to shake. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered. "I just wanted my work to matter, to be recognized." "Then make it matter now. Help us stop them." "How?" "Tell me everything. Every name, every meeting, every detail." Daniel activated the recording device. "Give me something that can save the world you helped endanger." Vasquez was silent for a long moment. Then she began to talk. The release happened at midnight. 12 countries, 47 news organizations, international law enforcement agencies, human rights groups, all receiving the same package simultaneously. Marcus's evidence, Vasquez's confession, financial records, communication intercepts, everything. Daniel watched the first headlines break from Helena's safe house. Sophie sat beside him, refreshing news feeds on her phone. Lucas was safe in Montana, texting constant updates and questions. "It's happening," Sophie breathed. "It's actually happening." "Arrests in Washington." Helena read from her tablet. "Investigations launched in London, Brussels, Tokyo." "Will it be enough?" Daniel asked. "It's a start." Helena looked at him. "Whatever happens next, you've given the world a fighting chance. Daniel thought about everything he'd been through: the flat tire in the rain, the mysterious summons, the threats, the violence, the impossible choices. 6 days ago, he'd been a struggling mechanic worried about making rent. Now he'd helped expose a conspiracy that had threatened global civilization. His phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "Dad, you're on TV. They're calling you a hero." "Are you a hero?" Daniel smiled, his eyes stinging. "I'm just a guy who stopped to help a crying girl with a flat tire. Sometimes that's all it takes. That's what makes you a hero, Dad. That's what Mom would say." Daniel closed his eyes. Melissa's voice echoed in his memory, clear as the day she'd spoken the words. "The measure of a man isn't what he has. It's what he does when others need him." "Thank you," Sophie said quietly. She was watching him with something like wonder. For everything. For stopping that night. For not walking away when it would have been easier. "I couldn't walk away. Wouldn't be able to live with myself. Most people would have. Most people do." Sophie's voice dropped. "You're different. I'm just a father trying to set a good example for his son." Daniel stood, moving to the window. Dawn was breaking. A new day. A new world. "Everything I did because I wanted Lucas to grow up believing that one person can make a difference. That kindness matters. That standing up for what's right isn't just something people do in movies." Helena joined him at the window. "And now, he knows it's true. Because of you. Because of all of us." Daniel looked at her, at Sophie at the screen still flashing with breaking news. "Your ex-husband sacrificed everything to gather that evidence. You spent 4 years investigating in secret. Sophie never stopped searching for the truth. I was just the final piece. The piece that held everything together." Helena's voice was soft. "The piece none of us expected." 3 months later, Daniel stood in his garage watching Lucas help Sophie change the oil on her Mercedes. The world had changed. The consortium was shattered, its members facing trials in multiple countries. New safeguards had been implemented, reforms enacted. The threat of coordinated collapse had been neutralized for now. Marcus Reynolds was recovering slowly, his mind healing in ways the doctors couldn't explain. He couldn't remember. Everything might never remember everything, but he remembered Sophie. He remembered why he'd fought. That was enough. Helena had stepped down as CEO of Crane Dynamics. "Time to focus on what matters," she'd said. These days, she spent most of her time with her daughter rebuilding the relationship that had fractured under the weight of secrets and suspicion. And Daniel. Daniel was still a mechanic. Still struggling with bills, though the struggle was easier now. The reward for exposing the conspiracy had been substantial, but he'd donated most of it. Blood money, he'd called it, built on suffering. He kept enough to fix the apartment's leaky roof, to buy Lucas new clothes for school, to take a vacation, their first in years, to the lake where Melissa used to love watching the sunset. "Dad," Lucas's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Sophie says I'm a natural. She says I could be a mechanic someday." "You could be anything you want, buddy." "I want to be like you." Lucas's face was serious, earnest. "Someone who helps people. Someone who does the right thing even when it's hard." Daniel knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. "You already are, Lucas. You already are." Sophie wiped her hands on a rag, smiling at the exchange. "He's right, you know. You changed things. Changed us. Changed the whole world." "The world changes itself. I just gave it a push." "A pretty big push." Sophie's expression turned thoughtful. "My dad wants to meet you, properly, when he's stronger." "I'd like that." "He says you remind him of someone he used to know, someone who believed that individual actions could matter." Sophie's smile widened. "Turns out he was right." That evening, after Sophie had gone and Lucas was doing homework, Daniel sat on the apartment steps watching the sunset. His phone buzzed with a text from Helena. "Thank you. For everything. You gave me my family back." He typed a response, then deleted it. Some things didn't need words. Instead, he looked up at the sky painted in shades of gold and crimson and thought about Melissa. About the words she'd spoken so many times, the words that had guided him through the darkness. The measure of a man isn't what he has. It's what he does when others need him. He'd measured up, not because he was special, not because he was brave or smart or strong, but because he'd chosen to act when acting was hard. Because he'd stopped to help a crying girl with a flat tire. Because he'd said yes when every rational part of him screamed to say no. Lucas appeared in the doorway. "Dad, dinner's ready. I made mac and cheese." "Did you burn it?" "Only a little." Daniel laughed, standing up, brushing off his jeans. "Perfect. Just the way I like it." They walked inside together, father and son, into the modest apartment that had seen so much grief and struggle and finally hope. Outside, the world kept turning. New challenges waited. New threats would emerge. The fight for justice never truly ended. But tonight, there was mac and cheese. There was laughter. There was a boy who believed his father was a hero, and a father determined to prove him right. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.